In this video, we're going to take a look at problems 6 through 10 on the 2014 released SOL. So this is problem number 6. It says, what is the square root of 18 written in simplest radical form? So the way that we should be doing this is we should be thinking of 18 and what its factors are. So we should think of what the perfect square factors are. And it only has one perfect square factor, which is 9. So 9 times 2 is 18. So we have the square root of 9 times the square root of 2. Square root of 9 is just 3. 3 square root of 2. The other way we could be thinking about it is the prime factors. So prime numbers are numbers that only divide by itself and 1. So if I think of 18, we have 9 and 2, and we have 3 and 3. So the primes are 3, 3, and 2. So if I want to write the square root of 18, I could rewrite it as the square root of 3 times 3 times 2. And what we need to do now is pull out the pairs. So there are 2 3s, so they come out as 1 3. So it's going to be 3 times the square root of 2. So those are two methods that we have. There are also some calculator methods that we can do to solve this. One thing that we can do is we can just type in the square root of 18 and see which one gets us that same value. So 2 times the square root of 3 is not the same thing. 3 times the square root of 2 is the same thing. So that's another method that we can do. You can try those other ones and you'll see that they don't work. They're not the same thing as the 4.24 going on forever. The last method that we talked about in class is where we take the number under the square root, 18, and divide it by x squared. So your calculator should be set up, if you hit second graph, where you look for whole numbers in y1. So you look for whole numbers here. And the one that's the furthest down is 2. So this is your outside number, and this is your inside number. So another way to see this would be 3 times the square root of 2. 3 on the outside, 2 on the inside of the square root. So that's a lot of different ways that we've talked about during this year to solve for square roots and simplify square roots. So let's move on to problem number 6. It says which binomial, sorry, this isn't 6, this is 7. Which binomial is a factor of c squared minus 12c plus 32? And again, let's use the factoring app. Actually, this is a quadratic solution app, but what we do is we go to apps and we go down to 4. So we did this in the last video also. And we go to Poly Root Finder, number 1. Then we just hit next or graph, and then we enter the coefficients. It's already in standard form in the fact that we don't have to move anything over. So our coefficients are 1, negative 12, and 32. So 1, negative 12, and 32. Then we hit solve, and we get x is equal to 8, and x is equal to 4. So remember, when we use this app, we need to flip the signs. So it becomes x minus 8 and x minus 4. But we're not using x, we're using c. So since we're using c, it should be c minus 8 and c minus 4. So which one has one of these? Well, it's just c minus 4, or c minus 8, sorry. C minus 4 is the other answer, but it's not one of our choices. So remember, we can use that app and make sure that you flip the signs whenever you factor. The solutions are 8 and 4. The factors are c minus 8 and c minus 4. Let's move on to problem number 8. So this says, what is the value of the expression when x is equal to 2/3? So a couple different ways we can do this. Everywhere there's an x, we can put 2/3. So we can just get our calculator out and type that in. If I want to exit this, I have to hit second quit. So we can also use the alpha y equals enter. So 2/3 squared plus 3 times alpha y equals enter. 2/3. And we have minus 2. So we get an answer of 4/9, which is letter D. The other thing we can do is we can use the storage function. So we talked about this in the last video. So to do the storage function, we first type in the value that we want to substitute. So we want 2/3 to be stored as x. So store is right above the on button, and x is next to alpha. And then we could just type in x squared plus 3x minus 2. And when we do that, we see we get the same answer, 4/9. It's very important that you store it first. There's a lot of math teachers that don't like the storage function because students will forget to store it and just type that in and it defaults at 0. So if you don't store it first, it doesn't work. Let's move on to problem number 9. So this says which expression is equivalent to the quantity of 3x to the negative 4 squared times 5x to the negative 2. So again, we're asked which expression is equivalent. So we talked about this in the last video, but anytime we're dealing with exponents, we have to use MADSPAM, and that says whenever we multiply, we add the exponents. When we divide, we subtract the exponents. Whenever we have a power to a power, we multiply the exponents. So that acronym MADSPAM is very useful to help us. Well, we have a multiplication in between these two, but before we have that, we have this power to a power. So I'm going to rewrite just the first part. And this is a power to a power. So that means we have to multiply the exponents. So this 2 will get distributed to these two things. Now the exponent after this 3 is a 1. Remember, anytime there's a number and there's no exponent, there's always a 1. And obviously the x is negative 4. So we do 3 to the 1 times 2. It's a power of a power, so we need to multiply them. X to the negative 4 times 2. So whenever we simplify this, we get 3 squared times x to the negative 8. And 3 squared is 9, x to the negative 8. We can't do anything more with that x to the negative 8. So now we're ready to take 9 times x to the negative 8, and we're going to multiply it by this remaining thing. So times 5x to the negative 2. So to start this, we take the numbers, the coefficients, 9 times 5, which is just 45. 9 times 5 is 45. And to do the other part, we're multiplying x to the negative 8 times x to the negative 2. So that means we have to add those exponents. So we're going to have 45x to the negative 10. The last thing we need to remember is negative exponents go to the denominator. And they flip to positive. So again, after this 45, we have a positive 1. So that's going to remain in the numerator. 45 remains in the numerator, but this negative 10 goes to the denominator as a positive 10. So the answer is 45 over x to the 10th. So that was a lot of rules to remember with exponents. There is a way that you can check your answer with the calculator, and that is to use the storage function. So we talked about the storage function already today, but whenever we check our answers like this, you need to pick a good value to store x. So in the last video, we talked about storing our variables as starting with 2 and then just moving up from there. So x is the only variable, so we're going to store it as 2. So let's do 2 store as x. And we're going to try 3x to the negative 4, and we're going to square that, times, so I'm typing it in exactly as it's written with all the parentheses everywhere they are, and I get this number 0.0439. So I want to match this number. So I got 0.0439 and it goes on forever. Well, let's try these values. So let's try A, which was not the right answer, 30 over x to the 10th. And you see we get an answer that's not that. And even if you want to convert this to a decimal, you can go to math 2 and you see it's still not the same thing. It's not 0.0439. But whenever I try C, which was the correct answer, alpha y equals enter, 45 over x to the 10th. So I get this number. It might not look like it's right, but we go to math decimal, and we get the 0.0439, and it's the same exact thing that we got before. So hopefully that makes sense how we can use the storage function to check it out, and it'll be something we'll keep going back to throughout. So let's conclude this video by taking a look at number 10. It says, which polynomial is equivalent to 18n squared minus 9n plus 1 over 3n minus 1? Assume the divisor is not equal to 0. So how we do this is we just factor the numerator and then cancel the common factor. So we factor the numerator. And the way we talked about how to factor the numerator, we've already done it a couple times, is to go to this app, this PLY SMLT2, and we go to number 1. And we just hit next. So we enter our coefficients, 18, negative 9, and 1. So in case you're wondering where I got those, I just got 18, negative 9, and 1. So it looks like it should be n, that's our variable here, minus 1/3, and n minus 1 over 6. But remember, we talked about earlier, whenever we have a fraction, we move this numerator number out to the front here. So our factors are going to be 3n minus 1 and n minus 6. So whenever we factor the numerator, this is equivalent to that right there. And we still have this over our same denominator, 3n minus 1. And we just cancel the common factors 1 for 1. So the 3n minus 1s will go away, and we're just left with, sorry, I didn't copy this down right, did I? Told you to slide it, and I didn't slide it. It should be 6n minus 1. So that's what we're left with, 6n minus 1, which is letter A. So we can use the storage function to check this. So let's hit second quit a couple times. So let's store n is equal to 2. So to do that, we'll do 2 STO alpha, and the n button is right here. We could use x if you want to, but just have to make sure that you keep it like that. So 18 alpha, we have n squared minus 9n plus 1 divided by 3n plus 1. So make sure you're very careful to type it in correctly and put all the parentheses where they're supposed to go. So we get this is equal to 11. So let's just type in 6n minus 1. And we see we get the same thing. This is 11. You should check that none of these other ones are the same, but they aren't. So 6n plus 1 gets us 13, so that's not what we want. 6n squared minus 3. So anytime you have something that says equivalent, or equal to. You can almost always use the storage function to help you out with this. And if you're stuck, if you don't know a lot about how to solve these, the storage function is a great way. So the only one that got you 11 was letter A. So there's an example of how we can use the storage function. And that'll be it for this video. We've covered the first 10 problems now. So check back whenever we'll do problems 11 through 15 in the next video.